God over money, hog mom.
For real.
7.
YOLO.
Dayton.
The real one. Yeah. It's Christ above everything, and in this ring, every swing is a bolo. Because Jesus got me more creased up than a cholo. So, bro, do not play me homo. By his blessing, I was yanked out of Lucifer's oppression. That's my YOLO. Used to take a zip on the trip, all by my dolo. Today, wonder how I'm making a band by going solo. Where I'm from, even though the powder is white, they call it cocoa. And if you're out of bounds, they get on your head just like a GoPro. Used to clap and squeeze out the stolo. I thank him for salvation. If I was Japanese, I tell him domo. I was coming to America first to let my oats grow. Even though I put that semi to work, he made my soul glow. I'm from Sinner's Town, where daily the foe blow. And I've been around more KC than JoJo. About the father business, hang with us, you cannot stand around no more. You are not in Kansas now, Toto. YOLO, yanked out of Lucifer's oppression. Oh no, the Christians bring conviction to your section. Suggestion, yeah, let Christ give you new life. Alright. YOLO, yanked out of Lucifer's oppression. Oh no, Christians bring conviction to your section. Suggestion, let Christ give you new life.
Yo, Seb, I heard him say, when Dayton spits, he blacks out like when the breaker trips, snapping like the paparazzi's cameras when they taking flicks. But I liked him more when he was rapping on that gangster tip, not rapping about these ancient scripts of Christ, cause that just makes us sick. They would rather hear me viciously ripping seeds, planting these kids with seeds of death that infect like a sick disease. They must have missed the memo, the new meaning of triple D is that Dayton is dead, it is over for him, he's history. So, I was a slave in Lucifer's oppression, hanging from a noose in his possession, until Yeshua revealed his truth and cut me loose from his deception. It's a life I didn't choose, this was predestined. The Father opened my eyes, so bye-bye, he has cut all of my ties and saved me from the fall like a parachute in a skydive till I die. God has linked me up with these 5 guys, GOM and our connection stronger than your Wi-Fi, so
alright. Yanked out of Lucifer's oppression. Oh no, the Christians bring conviction to your section. Suggestion, let Christ give you new life. Alright. YOLO, yanked out of Lucifer's oppression. Oh no, Christians bring conviction to your section. Suggestion, let Christ give you new life. Alright. Building children, so we stack it like a Lego. Jehovah is the captain, I get it cracking if we say so, but it's active. Where I'm at, boy, they'll cap you like a payroll. They spiritually dead, I guess I'm passing out some halos. Get your lasos, hog tying nasos. Streets of the forsaken on Dayton's, boy, I'll be skating like the lake froze. Beefing is for certain, cook my burger with some queso. Murk the wicked serpent, we ain't worshiping this pesos, yeah. Life's tough, I like it rough, just like a Sado. Masochist, no pacifist, I'm blasting at the Pharaoh. When I used to get keyed, I had to get the Mako. Put on the mind of Christ, now I'm matching wits with Play-Doh. H-O, GMOB, homie, this the take-o. Verily, occurrence is currently in your facial. I pray for the day, man, I can't wait for him to suffer. Yeah, I'm hateful, cause Satan is a sucker like fellatio. YOLO, yanked out of Lucifer's oppression. Oh no, the Christians bring conviction to your section. Suggestion, let Christ give you new life. Alright. YOLO, yanked out of Lucifer's oppression. Oh no, Christians bring conviction to your section. Suggestion, let Christ give you new life. Alright.
Y'all know what it is. Rod Joe Boss Radio is in the building. I hope y'all ready to have some fun, man. We're going to have a really good episode. I'm telling y'all right now, do me a favor. Go ahead and hop into the comment section. Let me know where you're logging in from and rock out with your boy. Listen, we're going to be doing a lot, man. We're going to do a lot. This episode is episode 11, and I'm going to be talking about being still, then move, faith in real life. All right. That's what we're going to talk about. All right. That's literally what this episode is called. So I hope you're ready, because I'm going to share a lot with you this episode. I'm going to share a couple of things I've learned, a couple of things that I got to experience this weekend. And man, it was definitely a blessing all the way through. That's really what it was. A blessing all the way through, man. Let me tell you. So y'all know what it is, man. Tonight we're gonna talk about the 7 M's. Specifically, we're gonna talk about mastery, ministry, and money from the 7 M's. Because I had the opportunity to minister to a few people while I was driving Uber, right? Which is crazy, right? You would think, like, who does that? Sometimes what I learned is that, it reminded me that no matter where you are, you have got to be prepared to minister, right? And I'm going to anchor this in scripture, not ankle. When you think about Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." It doesn't say be busy and hope. It doesn't say be stressed and guess. It says be still and know, right? That's an amazing thing. So if you've been overwhelmed, if you've been restless, if you've been anxious, or you feel like you can't hear from God clearly, you're in the right place for this episode. All right. So y'all know I have the 7 M's framework, right? And what we're going to talk about here, the big idea is that stillness is not a location. It's a posture, right? And it connects to the 7 M's like this, right? Mastery. Stillness is a skill. You can train it. You can train to be still, right? Of course, ministry, because stillness helps you hear God's nudge to serve people, right? And of course, money, because stillness helps you make wise decisions instead of emotional ones. So let's get into it, right? So I'm driving Uber, which I do that on the weekend sometimes, right? Because listen, sometimes when it gets tough, you gotta have a hustle, right? And of course, y'all know how I do. I'm sticking to legal hustles. Y'all won't see me in the streets peddling nothing I shouldn't be. So I'm driving Uber, and of course, there's different people. You're gonna have different stories, right? You're gonna have different energy. And a few rides, I could tell that this wasn't just gonna be transportation. Some of these people were carrying something heavy. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect and I'm not anybody's savior, but I was available, right? Particularly, there was a young man who got into a car, picked him and a friend up from a bar, right? And they were saying, all right, this is the end of the night. Can you take me to this hotel, blah, blah, blah. If you've ever ridden in an Uber, the address of where they're going is already there. So in the car while they're talking, they did multiple stops. So they had me stop at the corner store before I took them to their final destination. On the way to the corner store or gas station, really, they don't really got corner stores out here in Charlotte, but in the gas station, right? As I'm talking to him or I'm listening to him, the person who ordered the Uber, he's really talking about how his father has a drinking problem, right? And I'm just listening to him. I'm like, wow, like, okay, like, that's a lot for him to share, especially with me, but he really wasn't sharing it with me. I just kind of happened to be in the car. But you never know. As you listen to different people, you find out that they're struggling with a lot. So he's talking about his father having an alcoholic problem. He's talking about how he doesn't want to be like that. He's talking about how his father would sometimes get, really angry and abusive towards his mother. And it was pretty tough to hear it, right? It was pretty tough to hear it because I could tell like he was really coming from a place of hurt. So he gets back in the car and I said, listen, I know you don't know me from anything, but if you don't mind, can I ask you a couple questions? Do you mind if I say something to you? He's like, sure. So I start talking to him. I say, listen, I said, I wasn't trying to be in your business, but I heard what you mentioned about your father and how you really don't want to be like him, right? I said, you have a choice right now to control what happens with your family, right? Because you are the next generation. You are your father's son. That's not going to change. but you have an opportunity for it to be different. I said, because there's the legacy that you receive, and you can't help the legacy that comes before you. But there's also the legacy you leave, which you have control over that. And this is what I was explaining to him. I said, if you don't want your father to continue drinking and you don't want that lifestyle to continue to be a part of your family, I said, you have to be the difference, right? I said, and I'm not saying you got to go in and tell everybody stop drinking, stop doing this, stop doing that, right? Because then they're going to rebel. But you could just quietly just not drink around them. Just quietly just say, I'm good. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm kind of changing my life around. I said that in itself, not only will it convict them, right? Because let's be honest, when you change and you're the first person to change in your family, there's this conviction aspect. But then there's also this aspect of like, okay, if he can do it, I think I can do it too, right? And sometimes you have to be the trailblazer in your family. You have to be the one that says, you know what? My family is known for XYZ, but it's not going to be known for that anymore. My family has been known to do, some negative things, but that stops with me. I am not going to let that happen anymore. So you have that opportunity, right? So whatever it is that you want to change, this is what I'm explaining to them. I said, whatever it is that you want to change a part of your family, you first be the dynamic that they need to see. Because sometimes if you've never seen growth, if you've never seen a healthy lifestyle, or if you've never seen what you really want to do, sometimes you have to be the first person to go through it so that you can learn what it is that you need to do. All right. Not only do you learn it, but what you learn, you can now go back and share it with your friends and family, right? If your family, let's say your family has drug use, right? If drug use is big in your family, you could be the first one to say, I'm not going to be that way. I'm not going to use drugs, right? Or let's say if you've already participated in that, right? Because I'm not judging. It happens. You could be the first one to say, you know what? We did this before, but I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. So you have an opportunity to do a lot of change there. And this is what I'm explaining to him, right? And by the end of the conversation, he was in tears, right? Like not like boo-hoo crying, but I could see his eyes watering up, and he was so grateful for me to talk to him that way, right? Because he was like, I had no idea how much I needed this Uber ride. This is by far the best Uber ride I've ever taken. And he wanted to stay in contact with me and everything. He wanted to call me Father Joe. I said, no. I don't got no title like that. Right? I said, you could just call me Joe. And I told him where my church is here locally. And I said, hey, listen, let's stay connected. Let's do what we do and let's support each other, right? Ain't nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. So took my information, and it wasn't even for the sake of trying to garner something from him. It was more me trying to take an opportunity to minister. And I learned in that moment that sometimes, even if you're in a bad situation, you still have to take the opportunity to share the love of God. And it makes me think of Paul. When Paul wrote most of the New Testament, right? A lot of it he wrote from prison. From prison. Paul was literally writing scriptures in prison, still ministering to people. And listen, prison in those days is not like prison nowadays. There was no AC. It's not guaranteed that he's going to get 3 hots in the cot, right? It was chains and bars and some real crazy stuff. And even in that, he still took the time to write to different places, to Ephesus and different places about how they can be better in this walk, right? So he took his opportunity to minister to the people there and still write down his thoughts and move forward, right? So that I wanted to share that with you because, like I said, I'm not saying that I'm perfect and I'm nobody's savior, but I just made myself available. And here's what it made me think about. Because ministry doesn't always look like a pulpit, right? Sometimes ministry looks like just listening without rushing, right? Sometimes you can just be asking one honest question. It could be something as simple as showing compassion without trying to fix it. Got to clip that because sometimes that's hard for me, right? Offering prayer if they want it. Or sometimes you just got to speak hope when someone really feels unseen. And that's exactly what was going on with that man. He felt unseen. So I was able to speak hope into his life. And here's what I noticed. Sometimes when your spirit is loud, and I'm getting back into the being still part, right? When your spirit is loud, when your mind is racing, you can miss those moments, right? But when you practice stillness, you start noticing God's timing, right? So Galatians 6:2 says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ, right? Sometimes you bear burdens with money. Sometimes you bear burdens with time. Sometimes you bear burdens with just presence, right? There have been many a times where people have been able to help me carry a burden just by simply being in the room with me, not necessarily having deep conversations, not necessarily trying to minister the word to me, but just because I didn't need to be alone, their presence did something to me, right? And in those moments of me driving Uber, right, it felt like God was saying, just be present, be kind, and just listen. All right. So that's what I wanted to share y'all about my Uber moments and doing everything else. Right. So now we're going to move on to the next segment. And what I want to talk about this next segment is the men's retreat that I got to experience this last weekend with my pastor, called the Table Experience. And it was something beautiful. And a couple of things that we learned from this retreat, we learned about meditation. We learned about contemplation and being still, right? And those things hit me. And it hit me because most of us, we don't really have a prayer problem. We have a stillness problem. Yeah. Being still, right? You see, we talk, but we don't listen. We move, but we don't reflect. 1 Kings 19, Elijah, he didn't find God in the wind or in the earthquake or fire. God came in a still, small voice. So if your life is always noise, you might miss the voice that you're praying to hear, right? That early morning meditation when it's just you. Sometimes it could be late night when it's just you. Sometimes you could just be in your car, turn your radio off and just listen, right? Because here's a quick breakdown, right? Like I said, meditation, contemplation, and stillness. So meditation, which is biblical, is focusing your mind on God's truth. And that's from Joshua 1:8. It says to meditate on the word day and night. That's good, right? I know. Contemplation is sitting with the truth long enough for you to long enough for it to shape you, right? So you meditate so you can focus on God's words. Let me digest this. What is God saying to me, right? Then once you get that revelation, you can contemplate on it like, wow, like, God, you really just said this to me. Let me contemplate how this really can affect my life, right? Let me sit still for a moment, right? So I can stop striving towards my goal long enough to recognize God's presence. Let me just be still, right? And again, Psalm 46:10, be still and know. There's a kind of knowing that only comes after you stop the spinning. Someone said to me this weekend that in a lot of ways, they saw me kind of running and running and running, like almost like a hamster in a wheel, right? Like I'm running and I'm going hard and I'm doing all these different things, but I'm not seeing the fruit of it because I'm trying to do too much and I'm not being still, right? So being still and know, not let me run and hurry up, not let me worry, but let me be still and know. Not stress and guess. Let me be still and know. And if this resonates with you, I need you to put in the comments, be still, right? Put in the comments, be still. So that's mastery right there. Training your mind and training your spirit, right? We're going to move on to the next segment. And this is called stillness in motion, right? So here's what surprised me, right? I'm driving, I'm working, I'm moving, and I can still practice stillness. Even in my busy life, like y'all know, I do a lot, right? I'm an entrepreneur, right? With Rise Up Financial Agency. I'm an entrepreneur with Joe Boss Radio. Technically, Uber is entrepreneurial, right? I volunteer at my church, right? I'm now doing some work with the Taekwondo studio, right? So I got a lot on my plate on top of just being a husband and a father, right? So I got a lot of things that I'm a part of and I wear a lot of hats, right? But stillness is not about being motionless. It's about being centered. And sometimes when you're uncentered, you cannot be effective or as effective as you really could be, right? So Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Not just your church paths, not your it's also your work paths, right? It's your family paths, right? And in this case, it was my Uber paths, right? I'm coming across people that I got to minister to driving Uber. And I have more stories that I'll share with you, right? So now I do this. Before I start driving, I'm like, God, direct my path. In between writes, God, keep my spirit clean, right? And if there's a tough moment, I can say, God, guard my heart. So these are a couple of things that you could put into practice, right? And if I'm not still, what happens is when you don't have time to reflect and contemplate, what you end up doing is just reacting. And when you react, chances are you're not going to react in the best manner, right? If you react, chances are you're going to say something or do something that you really don't mean. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help y'all not do things in that manner. I'm trying to help you guys understand that there's a difference between just reacting and contemplation and meditation, right? When you meditate, sometimes you can prepare yourself to deal with difficulties before they even happen, right? When you take time to meditate and contemplate, you prepare your heart. So when the challenges come, you can have a peace through the storm that you would not have had if you didn't take the time to still yourself, right? Keep the peace. So Isaiah 26:3, and I know I'm throwing a lot of scriptures at y'all tonight, right? But I felt like this was necessary, right? Isaiah 26:3 says, you will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you. Isn't that crazy? Perfect peace. And all I got to do is stay focused on God. That's amazing, right? Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that something that we all strive for? Like we all would love to keep perfect peace. That has got to be an amazing thing. Got to be an amazing thing, right? It's like, okay, God, what are you trying to show me? But let me focus on you so that I can not only receive the blessing, but I understand when it happens. I can understand when it's ready for me to go through this season, right? Because we are going to go through some seasons, right? Even if we're talking about the natural, there's 4 seasons in a year: winter, spring, summer, fall, right? Everybody loves the spring because the spring represents kind of a coming out season. Like, I'm coming out of some darkness, right? Summer is generally when you have the most fun. School is out, you can vacation, the weather's warm, you can hit the beaches, you can travel, you can do whatever you want to do because it's summertime, right? But when the summertime is over, the fun season is over. Now you've got to refocus and jump back into fall because the weather's going to change and start to get cooler. Now you go from shorts and a t-shirt to now you got to wear pants and long sleeves. As the fall goes on, you got to put on, a little heavier jacket. And then we're back into the winter season, which winter season can be tough because it's cold outside. If you a farmer, crops aren't growing in the winter, right? Particularly if you live in a cold environment like New York. Let's just keep it real, right? There's generally snow, which can slow you down, right? Ice and snow will slow down the city. I don't care where you live. It's going to slow you down. So then you go back into spring and then the summer. So it's a cycle. You're going to have times that are rough. You're going to have seasons where things are great, and you're going to have seasons where things are not so great. But when you prepare your mind for stillness, then you're able to handle it. All right. So listen, I'm going to give y'all, it's time for a quick commercial break from one of our sponsors, Rise Up Financial Agency. And I play one of their commercials. Here we go. The checklist most people forget. It's tax season, so here's the checklist most people forget. I'm focused on filing my taxes. That's the priority. Absolutely. File your taxes, but while you're gathering documents, it's also the perfect time to review or buy life insurance. How is that as important as taxes? Well, taxes protect your money. Life insurance protects your people. If something happens to you, your family still has rent, food, childcare, and bills. Tax refunds won't cover that long. Okay, but why now? Because tax season gives you everything we need. Your income to match your coverage, your debts and big goals, and a clear view of your budget. So it's like a financial checkup? Exactly. Most people update taxes yearly. Your protection plan should be reviewed yearly too. Comment tax and I'll send you my tax season checklist and we'll do a quick review, no obligation. All right. That was brought to you by Rise Up Financial Agency. And like I said, it was a quick break. And that's going to lead into the next segment where we're going to talk about money, right? And as the commercial mentioned, it's now tax season, right? And during tax season is an opportunity where you could review your situation and look into life insurance, right? So as in tax season, it does 2 things, right? One, it makes people feel pressure because bills, debt, and responsibility gets real loud, right? But it also gives some people a temporary window. Either they get a refund or they finally sit down and look at their finances, right? Either way, this is one of the best times to talk about protection, not just budgeting. And I'm going to say something that a lot of people avoid. If you have people who depend on you, life insurance is not optional. It's love with a plan. All right. So I'm going to give y'all three simple reasons why tax season is the perfect time for you to handle life insurance. All right. Here's number 1. You're already reviewing your financial life, right? You're gathering documents, you're looking up income, you're checking what you paid, what you owe. That's the right time to ask, if something happened to me tomorrow, what happens to my family next week? And I always use this scenario. Let's just say for a random reason, an elephant is walking down the street and falls on top of you. what happens to your family? Can they maintain the home that you stay in? Can they maintain the bills and their lifestyle? Or is it going to be a dramatic shift? Right? That's number one. Number two, refund season can remove the I can't afford it barrier. Right? Because I'm not telling anyone what to do with their refund. You got to do what's best for your household, right? But if you use a piece of that season to start protection, you can turn a temporary moment into a long-term safety net. It's amazing what you can do with simple products, right? And I'm not saying you got to go hardcore and get whole life or universal. Start out simple. We can get you a very affordable term insurance policy. And trust me, let me tell you, if something happens to you, the bank isn't going to ask what type of life insurance you had, but your family is. They're going to say, did you have a policy? Otherwise, you're going to end up on GoFundMe. I'm going to leave that there. And number three, life insurance can cover real world stuff that people leave behind, right? So, for example, you don't die for free, right? There's final expenses, right? You can say, oh, all right, well, you ain't got to bury me. You could cremate me. Cremation is not free. There's a cost to that. The average funeral cost for cremation right now is about $5,000 to $7,000, right? If you want a full burial, you're looking for a minimum 10 to 15. And if you live in the North, probably closer to 20, if you want to do it the right way. Now, you can go and find cheaper ways, but do you really want to honor your loved one that way? Probably not, right? So that's just final expenses. Then you have the rent or the mortgage. You have whatever other debts you have, which could be credit card debt. It could be your mortgage debt, student loan debts, car loans, right? Then you have your kids, because your kids still got to eat. They're still going to grow out of those clothes, right? They're going to need tuition if they go to college. They're going to need, field trip money, because schools always find a way to get you to contribute some extra money. So you're going to need that, right? And what it does is simply giving your family time to grieve without panic. Because here's the truth, right? And as an insurance agent, I know this firsthand. If somebody dies, particularly when it's unexpected, most people are not in a position to make sound decisions. And it's just the truth. They're not in position to make sound decisions because whatever they're going through, the loss of a spouse, a child, a parent, a friend, a cousin, right? That's a huge emotional shakeup, because not only did you lose someone close to you, but it also makes you reflect on your own life and how fragile that is, because it could have been you. It could have been you, right? So life insurance can cover real world stuff that people leave behind. All right. Now, I want to keep it faith and practical. You see, Proverbs 13:22 says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, right? Not just enough to bury him, but for his children's children. So an inheritance doesn't always mean you left millions, right? I'm not saying to do that, but sometimes it means you left some stability, right? Sometimes it means you left some options, right? Sometimes it means your family didn't have to do a GoFundMe. And if you think that this is funny or you don't think that it applies to you, go on the GoFundMe's website right now, right? And just type in something like funeral. You're going to see well over hundreds of names, right? And a lot of those names, the majority of the names, right, are people under the age of 40. I'm serious. There's people under the age of probably 40, right? Because they were young, they didn't think it would happen to them. They were not prepared. So the younger you are, the better. So here's a quick reality check. All right. Here's a reality check question. If I'm gone, does my family get a check or do they get a problem? Yeah, I'm silent on purpose right there, right? That's not fear, that's wisdom, right? And I'm gonna give you a disclaimer, right? And just so it's clear, I'm not giving you tax advice on this show, right? This is a financial protection talk, common sense planning. So if you have specific tax questions, you could talk to a qualified tax professional. I can help you, right? I am not a tax person, but I do work with Unified Principle, the 1863 project that can help you with your tax questions, right? I have a ton of tax people that can answer your specific tax questions. All I'm saying to do is for you to take a few moments, review it, and really discuss what that plan looks like. All right. So here's a quick call to action. If you've been meaning to handle it, this is your sign to go handle your business, right? So you can reach out to Rise Up Financial Agency. We'll do a simple, no pressure review of what you have, what you actually need, and the most important is what fits your budget, right? Because the goal isn't just to buy a policy, the goal is to protect the people you love. All right. And that's going to close out the money segment of this show. Like I said, the goal is not to buy a policy. That's not the main thing. The goal is to protect the people you love. All right. So now here's a couple of things to help you out, right? We're going to get back into the stillness, right? Be still, then move. So let's go to bring it back full circle. Before you make money decisions, before you react, before you procrastinate, practice stillness. All right. James 1:19 says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Right? So practice stillness. So here's the quick routine, right? And this will take you 3 minutes. The first thing you want to do is breathe. Just slowly inhale, slowly exhale. Do that for 60 seconds, right? The second thing you're going to do is you're going to name whatever it is, right? What are you feeling in this moment? What are you carrying in this moment? What decisions are you contemplating in this moment, right? And whatever it is, this is the last second, release it. Release it, right? I know that sounds crazy, but release it. You can say, God, I give this to you. So lead me, right? If this resonates with you, I need you to write be still in the comments because this is highly important, right? Then ask, and this when I say ask, this is you talking to Jesus, the higher power. Who do you want me to encourage today? Right? And that's the ministry coming out as mastery. Who do you want me to speak life into today? Right? If everybody thought like this, do you know how much better the world would be? Because sometimes you don't know what people are going through. People could be going through major tragic situations. And by you just encouraging them and offering them just a touch of hope, you might save that person's life. You might save that person's soul. You have no idea how it can affect them because it may be simple for you, but it may mean the world to them. I promise you it's important. All right. So listen, this has been episode 11, right? And remember to be still and then move because stillness is where you get direction. Movement is where you apply it. So be still. That's the first thing. All right. Mastery, ministry, and money. Those are the 3 topics that we went over this episode. And if this episode helps you, please share it with one person. Particularly share it with someone who may have been overwhelmed, especially somebody with a family who needs protection, right? And of course, as always, follow me on Joe Boss Radio on all platforms. And again, this is what I'm going to ask you guys to do, right? Switching up the background. I need you guys to donate. Donate, please. We take Cash App or Zelle. You can screenshot this and donate later. And listen, it doesn't matter what you decide to donate. It doesn't matter how much you decide to donate. That's not the important part of this, right? What's most important is that you said, you know what? I'm going to support. I'm going to do something about this, right? That's what's important. That's the main thing that I'm trying to get across the table is that you guys can help out. All right. Real simple. Real simple. Most people use Cash App when it comes to social media. So let's just put this out there right here. Cash App, Joe Boss Radio. If you haven't noticed, we kind of keep it simple and we keep it going with the same thing everywhere you go. Right? Joe Boss Radio on all socials, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and of course, Cash App. So that's how we do it, man. And first off, I want to appreciate each and every one of you that logged in with me, that rock with me, that thought it not robbery to be a part of this episode with me. It's been really, really a blessing to be here with you tonight. And again, until next time, in the words of the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, keep hope alive and keep rising. All right. I will see y'all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Y'all have a good night. Peace.